and welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. Today we are introducing the mini stamp set Flappy Holiday and the coordinating dies, as well as the new die set Merry Mistletoe. So let's take a closer look at these new products. Here is a closer look at all the pieces that the Merry Mistletoe die creates. You get a die that cuts the leaves that you see there in green. There's a die that cuts the branch, which we have cut out of brown. There's a die that cuts the bow, which is 3 pieces that we will assemble together. And then there is a die that will cut 6 of the little mistletoe berries. To assemble the bow, you need to put just a dot of glue on the little tails and layer the loop part of the bow on top of it. Then you can add a dot of glue in the middle of those 2 loops and add the little knot piece on top of that. And you get this really cool kind of 3-dimensional bow with the 3 layers of cardstock. Now to create the mistletoe branch, we just want to add some dots of glue on those little circles on the branch. And this is where we will drop our little berries that the die will cut. Mistletoe berries are traditionally white as we have them cut here, but this also looks really great with some red berries, which we will show you here in a little bit in a different project. Now to create your little mistletoe bough, you'll just layer the branch over top of the leaves, and then the bow can go at the top to hold everything together. Now you have a cute little mistletoe to hang from the top of your project. Now let's take a look at the Flappy Holiday stamp set. This is a mini stamp set that has these cute little birds. There is the one with the wings up, and then there is a bird with the wings down. These are great for magic picture changers or flippin' awesome cards, which we'll make in just a little bit. There's also the sentiment in the set that says, "Have a Flappy Holiday." There is also a little snowflake stamp in this set, which you can stamp around the birds. And then there is a little stamp that says flap, which is really fun to stamp around the bird's wings if you're making a card that indicates some movement of those birds flying. Now let's add some color to these images. And I'm coloring mine as if they were cardinals, so I'm using some reds for this. I have a R29 and an R27, so these are some pretty bright reds. I'm just adding my darkest color first, just to the edges and where the shadows will be, and then I will blend out with that R27. And I just love these bright red birds for holiday cards. I think they are so pretty. I can go back in with that darker color and add a little bit more shading if I feel like I need to, which is what I am doing here. And look at those beautiful red birds. Now for the face of the cardinal, which is typically black, I'm using some neutral grays. I don't want to make it black because I don't want to lose the detail of the eye, and I just think that this looks a lot better with the grays. Next, I'm going in with some greens to color his scarf, and I'm using the same color of green for both of their scarves because I'll be using these birds to make a flippin' awesome card, so I want it to look like the same bird on all the different panels. But these would be really fun on a card, and you color all their scarves different. These are great to mix in with the Winter Birds stamp set as well. So here are all my birds, and you can see I do have one bird there with the wings out. That is from the Winter Birds stamp set. These are the birds I'll be using for my Flippin' Awesome card. So I have the main piece of the Flippin' Awesome die cut from white. I have this little scalloped detail piece cut from red. Then I've cut the little panels from Blue Jay cardstock, and then I cut the decorative panels with the stitching, both the squares and that long one there that goes on the end piece, from some Hot Toddy favorite flannel paper. I've also cut the end of the Flippin' Awesome mechanism from that same Blue Jay cardstock so that it can match my panels, and then I have the little pull tab cut from Mermaid. So now I can create my little panels, and I've laid them all out here so I can get the placement of my bird pretty much the same. So he looks like he's in the center of every panel and his wings are just changing. So you can see I put that over so I can kind of make sure he's in the same orientation. I'm going by his beak so that his beak is always pointing forward. So when these panels flip, he will look like he's flying with the wings up and then the wings down. Now I'm using the snowflake from the set as well as some snowflakes from the winter bird set and some Blue Jay ink, and I'll just be stamping these around each of the birds on each of the panels to decorate. I'm also using that cute little flap sentiment there, and I'm putting it at the top or the bottom depending on where the wing of the bird is. Now I'm going back to my snowflakes. I did go ahead and stamp all of the words flap so that I made sure I did not stamp a snowflake where I wanted that little word to go. And then once I have all my panels stamped out, I'll add a little bit of liquid glue and just center these up in each of those squares cut from the Blue Jay cardstock. So these will be the panels that flip on my Flippin' Awesome card. And I am trying to keep them somewhat in order, so I make sure that when I go to put them on my card, I get them in the right spot. Now for the panel at the end, I'm just going to move these out of the way, and I'm pulling out the piece that's cut from white, and I'm going to fold on all of those score lines. And this will create my Flippin' Awesome mechanism. I am going to grab my bone folder and just kind of reinforce those folds. And then I'll fold in these little tabs here. These are going to wrap around, and they wrap around just like this, and I can kind of test to make sure it moves properly. Now for that panel that's cut from Blue Jay, I'm just going to trim off right at the score line because I only need this to cover up that big panel at the end, just like this. So I will add some liquid glue and kind of laminate this to that end panel, and that will make it match the other panels that are going to flip. And the end of it will be tucked underneath so you'll never see it. Then I can add this panel, which is that long one, and part of it's going to be covered up, and that's why I haven't glued my image or done my stamping yet, because I want to make sure it's centered in what you see, not the whole panel. So I'm just going to hold this in place with a little binder clip so that I can see the part of the panel that will be visible. Then I can stamp my sentiments centered in that part that's visible, and then I'll add that final little bird with his wings up just above my sentiment. I'll also go in with those same little snowflakes that I did before and stamp those in the Blue Jay ink so that this final panel matches the panels before it. Once this end panel is all stamped and ready to go, I'll add that little decorative piece, pull tab, and I have it unclipped from the binder clip now, and you can see why I stamped with it down, because if I centered it in that panel, it would kind of be off center. I also added a little heart as my arrow for that pull tab. Now I can take the first panel, or I should say the last panel you see before you get to that big pull tab, and this one glues directly to this piece. Then for the other ones, I'm just using some double-sided tape, and I've put it in each of those areas between the folds. So I'm going to fold this over. This will be the next panel, and I'll peel off the liner paper from those two pieces of double-sided tape, and then add the next panel that will be on top. Then I'll pull it to the side again, and for this one, I actually am going to add a second piece of tape. I just didn't have it centered, so I had to wait till I pulled off that liner paper to add that second piece of tape. You could do this with a tape runner as well, but I just want to make sure that this cardstock panel really sticks to this mechanism as it moves. Then I'll add the next panel, and then I'll pull this again, and then this will be the final panel. That will be the one that you see when you first get the card. So now you can see how that works. And then I need to add some adhesive to those little tabs there. So I did this again with a double-sided tape, and I'm just trimming off the excess so I get a nice clean edge. And then this I'm going to add to this add-on panel that I cut from some red cardstock. So I'll just pull off the liner paper, fold those tabs under, and center up this whole thing on that scalloped rectangle. And now it works perfectly. Now for my card base, I am using this green plaid. This is from the fruit salad collection, so you can see it has those pears on the back side. I just cut this with the largest outside in stitch rectangle so that I get a white border of my card base behind it. Then I can add my whole panel that I created. And I'm actually adding this a little bit high so that I can put my sentiment below that red scalloped rectangle. I'm using the sentiment that says Seasons Tweetings. This is from the Winter Birds stamp set, and I'm using this because that last panel says Have a Flappy Holiday, so I want to make sure that this says something a little bit different. And I'm just stamping that in black ink. Now I'm going to go through and add some little gel pen details, which I should have done first probably, but I forgot. So I added some little gel pen details to the birds, and then I'm going through and adding some little stripes to the scarves with my gel pen just to kind of decorate them a little bit more. And then here is my finished flippin' awesome card with those cute little birds from Flappy Holiday, as well as that bird from Winter Birds. And I just think that this is such a cute little card. Now we're going to create some cards with the Merry Mistletoe die set. First, we're starting by recreating a card by Tammy, and we're starting by cutting a stitched oval from some white cardstock to do some ink blending on. First, we're using some Evergreen Bough Distress Oxide ink to add color to this cardstock. And we're only adding ink to the top because we'll add a snowy hill to the bottom. Now we're pulling in a darker color. This is Pine Needles Distress Oxide, and we're adding a bit of that to the top of this oval, just to darken it up some. We will go back and forth to that evergreen bough and kind of blend between the two colors. Next, we're adding some white splatters for snow, and we have some acrylic white paint. We've added a little bit of water, and we're just picking that up with a paintbrush, tapping it onto acrylic block, and adding some snow splatters to this background. Next, we're going to cut another stitched oval, and this is going to be our snowy hill at the bottom. So we'll use a simple stitched hillside to cut the bottom of this oval and create that stitched hill that will go at the bottom for our little mice to stand on. Next, for our mistletoe, we want our mistletoe to match the colors of our background, so we're just adding some Distress Oxide to a piece of white cardstock to create our own colored paper that we'll cut our mistletoe from. So we're using those same colors that we use for the background. This is that evergreen bough, and then we'll use the pine needles for the darker color. Now that we have our custom colored cardstock, we'll be cutting the leaves of the Merry Mistletoe from these two colors. We're also cutting the branch from Merry Mistletoe from white cardstock for a different look. And then for the berries, we'll use some red and pink colors. So we'll have two different colors of berries on this project. On the branches, we'll add those little dots of glue to the circles, and we're just dropping our berries into place, kind of varying the berries so we have red and pink on both branches. We are using 2 branches of berries for this for a much fuller mistletoe look. For the bow, we're using some silver glitter cardstock, and we're layering those little tails underneath. Then we'll add a little dot of glue for the knot part that goes on top. And then here are all the pieces for our mistletoe, and we can start to layer these together. It just takes a little dot of glue at the top to layer the branches together. And then we'll layer our leaves on top of that. And this is kind of a different look that Tammy created by layering the leaves on top where the berries kind of peek through the back. Then we can add our bow to tie everything together. And then for the background of this card, we're going to use some nitpicky winter paper. We're going to use this pretty pink that has kind of the sweater pattern on it. We'll be cutting that with the largest of the outside in stitch rectangles. And then this will be the background that goes behind our beautiful oval that we ink blended earlier. For the snow hill, we're adding some foam squares and just layering this on the bottom of that oval. For the mistletoe, we're adding the little mice that are kissing from the Christmas before and afters. They're going to be kissing underneath this big mistletoe at the top. And we'll add them with some foam squares as well as they're standing on the little snowy hill at the bottom. Then we can add our big bundle of mistletoe at the top above our cute little mice. And then this will go in the center of our pattern paper panel. Next, we'll work on the sentiment. And Tammy had a really fun custom sentiment for this card that said Merry with the Scripty Merry and then Christmas at the bottom. So we cut that Scripty Merry from some red cardstock as well as some silver glitter cardstock. And we're going to layer these two together with a little bit of an offset so that it looks like this Scripty Merry has a glittery drop shadow behind it. Next, we need to work on the custom part of our sentiment. We're going to use this little stitch banner from the heart garland backdrop and some Smitty's ABCs stamps to spell out the word Christmas. We'll be stamping this in some red ink on that little stitch banner that we cut. So we've got some lobster ink here, and we'll just stamp that little Christmas sentiment right in the center of that stitch banner. We've also colored and cut out the tiny little mistletoe in the Christmas before and after stamp set, and now we can start to assemble our sentiment along the bottom. We've added foam squares to each end of this sentiment banner, and we'll just add some adhesive runner to the center where it overlaps the oval. And we'll layer this at the bottom of our card. Then we can add the Scripty Merry, which we've already added some adhesive to, across that snowy hill below our mice. And then for this little tiny mistletoe, we're going to hang that from the end of the Y on our little sentiment banner. Then we can add some foam squares all over the back of this panel that we've created and add this to our card base. And because we cut that pattern paper with that outside in stitch rectangle, we get a white border around our card. Finally, to add some sparkle to this mistletoe, we're adding some sparkle glaze pen just to the leaves of some of these mistletoe pieces. So you get this really fun sparkle that looks like the snow and ice have kind of landed on the mistletoe. And then here is our finished card inspired by the card that Tammy made. Thank you so much, Tammy, for letting us remake your card today. Next up, I'm going to make a card with the Merry Mistletoe dies as well, and I've already cut my leaves from two different colors of cardstock. I have some leaves from Noble Fir cardstock as well as cilantro, and then I've cut my branches from some chocolate bar cardstock. I also have my little bow cut from some red glitter cardstock and my berries cut from white, and I'll be using this Scripty Joy as my sentiment, which I also cut from that red glitter cardstock to match my bow. For the background, I'm going to use some favorite flannel paper, and I'm using this dark green color, which I think looks really pretty with the mistletoe and will have some really classic Christmas colors. I'm also using that cream colored plaid as well. I've pulled out my rectangle dies and I'll be cutting some red cardstock with this stitch scalloped rectangle frame. I'm cutting the largest stitch rectangle from the green plaid paper, and then I'll be using one of the outside in stitch rectangles for my cream plaid paper. I'm going to start by adding adhesive on the back of that green plaid panel and just add this to my card base. And then I'll take some liquid glue and just go around the back side of this red frame with a little bit of liquid glue and layer the cream plaid paper behind it. So it's a little bigger than the opening, so it will stick to that little frame of glue on the back side of the red. Now I just have my mistletoe laying here as a guide so I can kind of get the spacing for this Scripty Joy at the bottom. And then of course I can add the dot to the J with a little dot of glue. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my little mistletoe pieces to the top. I'm starting with the lighter color, which is that cilantro, and then I'm going to layer the noble fir over top. And then I can add my branch. I do not have my berries on here just yet. I'm going to add my berries here in a little bit after I assemble everything. Now for the bow, once again, just a little dot of glue on the tails, a little dot of glue between the loops for the knot, and then it just takes a little dot of glue to add this to the branch. Now I can add my berries with some dots of glue on that branch, and then I'll just add those little white berries to the branch. And no worries if any glue kind of shows through that little hole, it's going to dry clear so you're not going to see it. Now I'm adding this whole panel with some foam tape to pop it up off this beautiful plaid background, and I think that this looks really lovely in those really traditional Christmas colors. And finally, I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle to the berries with some Stickles glitter. I am almost to the end of the Stickles bottles, so you're going to see me kind of go off to the side because I'm having to kind of get it a little bit unclogged. That glitter's really sticking in there here at the end, but not to worry, I have another bottle waiting in the wings. And then here is a look at that final card. I really love these traditional Christmas colors, and I think that Merry Mistletoe is perfect with that die cut sentiment, and I love that you can layer as many pieces as you want and make it as full as you like. Now let's take a look at some examples from the design team. Callie's card is so pretty. I love that snowflake background. It really makes that mistletoe pop. I really love how Audrey used the mistletoe to create a beautiful border below her big bold sentiment, and Elise's card is so much fun with those bundles of mistletoe at the top and bottom of her fancy folded banner. Here is a mini slimline that I created. I love that green mistletoe on that green background. I think it is a really fun look. And then here is a card by Lynette. I love that green mistletoe with the red berries. It really pops on that white background. Audrey also combined the mistletoe with the Flappy holiday, and I think it is so cute how the little bird is carrying the mistletoe. And then this card by Letitia is so pretty. I love that big, bold background that she created with the snowflake stencil. Yainea created some beautiful little tags using some fun colors for her mistletoe and her berries. And then here is the card that Tammy created that inspired the card that we recreated today in the video. Grace created this really fun Flappy holiday card using winter birds as well, and I love how they're building a snowman. And Megan's interactive Flappy holiday card is so much fun. You turn the wheel back and forth and the bird moves left and right. Here is a card by Tammy, and I love how she combined Flappy Holiday with the Build a Birdhouse die set. And then this card by Maureen is so much fun. It is a magic picture changer. When you pull that tab, the bird flaps its wings and flies. And then here is another look at the card that I created today with the mistletoe. And then here is another look at that flippin' awesome Flappy holiday card. Thanks so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.